Good afternoon. I am Steve Swain, a professor of music here at Dartmouth College and the director of the college's Montgomery Fellows Program. We gather today on the ancestral homelands of the Western Abenaki, who were and are part of the Wabanaki Confederation. The Montgomery Fellows Program brings exceptional people to an exceptional place. That exceptional place, of course, is Dartmouth College, but it is also the Montgomery House on Ockham Pond, which was purchased in 1977 through the generosity of Kenneth Montgomery, class of 1925, and his wife, Harl. Our fellow today, the college's 271st resident fellow, comes to share with us his life and wisdom. The Montgomery Fellows Program extended an invitation to our current fellow primarily because of the work of one of my dearest colleagues. James E. Dobson, affectionately known to us all as Jed, is Associate Professor of English and Creative Writing and Director of the Writing Program here at the college. Jed's been around for over 20 years, and he has greatly enriched the campus and the community with his many contributions. One of the most recent, and I trust most profound, was a course he taught last term, titled Critical AI. The course introduced students to the history of artificial intelligence and examined the sociocultural impacts of this transformative technology. Parallel to the course was Jed's role this academic year as he serves in the provost's office as special advisor for artificial intelligence. For these and other reasons, I have asked Jed to introduce our fellow to you. Will you join me in welcoming Jed Dobson?
Oh, thank you, Steve, for that very kind introduction. First, a little bit about this series. In partnership with the Montgomery Fellows Program, we've developed a series of connected visits of four fellows, Montgomery Fellows, in the winter and spring terms. We have titled this series, Agency, Speech, and Ethics in the AI Era. The interest and expertise of our four fellows are finely tuned in the direction of some of the most pressing problems connected with artificial intelligence. We've invited computer scientists, historians, legal scholars, and philosophers to help us think about the impacts of these new technologies on our campus, in our research, in our classrooms, and in everyday life. Tonight's speaker, Luciano Floridi, is the ideal person to inaugurate, or jumpstart as it were, this series, not only because his work takes up the problems of agency, the first key word in our framing collection of topics, but also because he's a deeply interdisciplinary researcher and a public scholar who has long been thinking about the social, philosophical, and technical issues connected with information technology. His pioneering work on the philosophy of information has informed countless researchers, government reports and policies, and projects in many applications. It has also earned him Italy's Knight of the Grand Cross of the Order of Merit. Professor Floridi is the founding director of the Digital Ethics Center and professor in the Cognitive Science program at Yale University. He's also a professor of Sociology and Culture and Communication at the University of Bologna. A prolific scholar, he's the author of many books and articles, well over 300 publications. He is also the editor-in-chief of the field-defining journal, Philosophy and Technology. Floridi has enriched our understanding of technology with a whole universe of new vocabulary and concepts to describe and analyze its uses, effects, and limitations. With a desire to be constructive and critical, Floridi, who is also a student of design, frequently creates visual artifacts, charts, to map and reduce complex technological processes. Applying the primary ontological function of computation to philosophize about the digital, Floridi seeks to find answers to the question, as he puts it in his recent The Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, of why does the digital have this cleaving power to couple, decouple, and recouple the world and our understanding of it. I take this to be his primary critical move. in analyzing how technology and the thinking about technology have been composed, which is to say, how they have been coupled. Floridi iteratively decouples and redirects our attention. We see this in his critique of common approaches to algorithmic bias, in which he asks us to shift our focus to the conditions for, rather than the consequences of, discriminatory outcomes. We see this in his account of agents and his directive to separate the concerns of morality and responsibility of agents. We see this in his highly influential account of AI and its actual successes and its discourse as one of continually decoupling its key term, intelligence, from a growing list of completed tasks and past benchmarks. It's a brilliant, productive move, and I look forward to seeing how he deploys it next. His lecture tonight is titled AI and the Future of Content. Please join me in welcoming Professor Floridi to Dartmouth and to the Montgomery Fellowship.
Thank you. That was unexpected. Steve said something about the exceptional place, and on that there is no doubt.
Make sure that you're not being rude. That's okay.
And now you can hear me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Not going nothing.
We can try again?
Yes, that's good.
Keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going? We're there? Are we there? Are we there yet? We're there.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it does also teach technical aspects of music, the gentleman here. Valid masters.
But not Scottish music.
So, as I was saying, he mentioned the exceptional place, and I'm on record a long, long time ago coming here as a graduate student, hoping that one day there might be a job I could apply. That job never came. And so you'll find me at Yale. But it's close enough. It did, however, also made a mistake in speaking of exceptional people. This is a mistake. I'm a mistake. Because I've seen the people who came here as fellows. And this is no joke. When I saw the list of people who were coming here, I said, I'm so glad they made this mistake. I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going. And whatever, no, it's too late for them. The invitation, I got the letter, that's done. It is beyond humbling. And if you don't know who the previous fellows have been, trust me, humbling doesn't even capture the whole thing. But we're not quite there yet. And as we prepare for the actual content, and I move here so that maybe it's a little bit better and I don't shout too much.
Just don't get too close to these speakers.
We are close to the speaker. By the time I finish, we will perfectly attune. So thank you for having me for this amazing fellowship. A final point for the academics in the room, especially the ones who have some white hair, you get a full week to work on your own things. Like, that is amazing. For the PhD students in the room, yeah, that will never happen again. Now, enjoy your PhD, because now once you get an academic, it's a completely different story. But without ruining your future expectations about a world and years of pure study, when in fact a lot of bureaucracy will be in the way, the topic for today, AI and the future of content. There will be moments when you may feel lost, but this map will come back. So there will be a bit of an introduction, just to warm up how we got here, and what I mean by content, that kind of sort of introduction. And then I had to find a label to describe this new world in which we find ourselves increasingly. Post-Vitruvian seemed to be a good label, but I will explain what I mean by that. But essentially, if you have seen the men, Leonardo, like that, yeah, that's what I mean by the Vitruvian men. That is where we're going to be for a bit of understanding, again, of background. 2 words, maybe more, on artificial intelligence. Not because you have to agree with me, but because at least you will know where you disagree. And we can disagree on real points as opposed to misunderstanding each other. So what I mean by artificial intelligence there. And finally, the actual topic, which after all this long, long premise, typical philosophical, running up, never jumping, but we will finally jump. And we will jump for future contents. By the way, this metaphor about jumping is important. When you are asked by the practitioners, we want to have a solution. There is the problem, and you start walking the opposite direction, and you tell them, yes, exactly, because I want to jump long, I need the run up. No one in his right mind gets close to the problem in order to solve the problem. Philosophy, distance from the problem, so that you can jump accordingly. Otherwise, you are right in the pond with your wet feet. So don't get too close to the problems. Distance. So the first 3 steps will be taking some distance so that we can jump properly. How do we go here? This is going to be a little bit of a show. Don't have hands-free. It's been a long run. This is all the millions of ways in which we try to mechanize, transform, communicate, disseminate, automate content. Content of all kinds. It could be, at some point I will tell you, movies, text, poems, videos, music, whatever we have produced that could be conveyed by a message. And at some point, unfortunately, you start seeing things that you have been using. Yes, I know. Some of the things that say, oh, what was that disc? Is that a frisbee? My student. I said, no, that was a CD, other days. So we got where we are now, and this has been thousands of years of content management. If you want to summarize their long history into 3 major big blocks, and it's a bad summary, just for memory's sake, a long number 1 process of recording, invention of writing onwards, and then 1 kept going, but on top of 1 we started getting 2, dissemination, the book invention. That was a turning point. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 3. Well, with the 3 was the automation of the production of content. So recording keeps going, dissemination keeps going, automation keeps going. With these 3 things through the millennia, that's where we are. So today we are just looking at a new turning point, a new page, if you like, a new chapter in a big book of the history of content. The new chapter is AI, and that's what the lecture is about. By content, that's what I mean. And I like to be clear because, of course, in mass media studies, in other contexts, you may have heard the content is also the message. The message is the content, etc. The medium, you heard that. You just have to go on the other side of the border. So I don't mean that. I want to keep it simple. So imagine, essentially, the content is the message in the bottle. I'm not talking about the bottle. I'm talking about the message in the bottle. So, any information, whatever, delivered to an audience. The audience might be ideal. Remember, the message in the bottle. Maybe someone is out there, maybe not. Through a medium, whether a bottle or something else. It could be of very different kinds, of course, these days. We have increased the kinds. When we have only tablets, remember those tablets that I showed at the beginning? Oh, by the way, those tablets, they never tell you about holidays. They're so sad. They're all about economic, legal procedures, fighting each other, complaining at the time about people, especially the young generation, on those tablets, millennia ago. Oh, young kids these days, those tablets. So we haven't changed an inch in that sense. So text from the tablets onwards, then visual, of course, photography and so on. Audio, because obviously, who doesn't listen to music these days? Video and interactive, because your average computer game also counts as content. And in fact, for some people, there's more content there than in other contexts. So all these are types of content. And again, we're just warming up. The post-Vitruvian chapter. So we have a bit of history, we have a bit of terminology, we are on the same page. This is a very old story. For those of you too far away, these are geometrical figures, signs, pictures on the sand. This is a story, an optimistic story of some philosophers, a Socratic philosopher, shipwrecking, that's the bad side, but actually happy to land where there are signs of human beings. So it's recounted in Vitruvio, in architecture, and it's a group of shipwreck survivors. The name of the philosopher is Aristippus. They get there and they don't know where they landed. But that's what he says here. We have nothing to fear, says the philosopher. As I see the presence of men, a moment of reflection. Those were the days when you saw the presence of men and you were, okay, that's a good thing. Now, I'm not quite sure that any migrants coming there and say, like, oh, there's presence there, no, hide immediately, no, before anyone finds out that we are here. I give you the Latin, just in case you want to refresh your Latin here. Dat mutat veel. What is the point of this? That it was inconceivable and has been inconceivable for millennia that if you find any content anywhere, that content had not been produced by anything else but a human being, not an animal, not a mechanism. So if you find geometrical figures on the sand, there was no robot and no dog that had been drawing them. It had to be a human being. The inference from content there for human process and input has been with us ever since. That is the Vitruvian, if you like, idea of content. If there's content, there's human production. If we ever find a tablet on Mars, apart from being very scary, we would know that someone like us was there until recently, or maybe robots. Now, this is what has happened very recently. We live in a post-Vitruvian culture in a twofold sense. Sense number one, I already introduced it. Content is no longer, and I'll show you for, the expert will forgive me, I'll show something very trivial in a moment, what I mean by content produced by machines with no human input. Amazing. But before getting there, first meaning of post-Vitruvian. Content is no longer necessarily human product. It doesn't have to be. Sense number two. This picture has been used since Leonardo drew it for us to show the human-centric picture or understanding of the universe. Now, we have not been at the center of anything for some time. There have been 4 revolutions. The first one, the Copernican, we're not at the center of the universe. In fact, we are on a small planet in the middle of a galaxy of marginal value in this big place. So we have been displaced from the centrality of the universe. Revolution number 2, we're not at the center of the animal kingdom either, since Darwin onwards. And revolution number 3, Freud, who actually put the other 2 revolutions in that order, and he said, I'm bringing you a 3rd revolution. We're not at the center of your mental space either. If something goes wrong, first of all, blame mom, generally, but no, you are not quite aware of what is going on. If you think that Freud was exaggerating, you just have to read Descartes' Meditations, where Descartes compares our mind literally to a basket, ideas to apples, and he says, what I'm going to do is check every apple in the basket, check whether it's okay or not, throw it away if it isn't, put it back if it's okay. So the idea that you look inside your mind and you see exactly what's in it and what is not, from Descartes onwards, all the way to Freud, and from Freud onwards, no one in his right mind thinks so. So 3 revolutions, not at the center of the universe, not at the center of the animal kingdom, not at the center of our mental life. The 4th is the one that we are undergoing now. We're not at the center of the info sphere, of the world of information either. We're not the best agents who can handle that information often. And as I will show you in a moment, we're not even the ones who actually produce that content. In fact, actually, most of the content that we have these days, if you mean by content only amount of digits, by far is machine to machine. It's not produced by human beings. It's not for consumption by us. It's a machine-to-machine world in which then we navigate. So this double view, post-Vitruvian, because content is produced by machines these days quite well, and because we're not at the center of anything, is reassuring. We can delegate a lot, and we can finally understand who we are for real, as opposed to thinking that a party is always about us. A bit juvenile, isn't it? So millennia think it's all about me. No, it's not about you, dear humanity. best scenario, you are at the service, but not the one who organizes the party. You are not your party, but the one who actually prepares the party for someone else. But that's for another lecture, another time. This is what I want to show to the people who don't know much about it. So the experts, please forgive me, because this is really trivial. But the other ones, I hope you enjoy it. So this is a typical text 2. A hand pours milk from a steel whisk into a cup of coffee on a table with a blurred kitchen background. That's all you have to input to get the following. This does not exist. There's nothing apart from those few lines in English. It's been entirely generated by a piece of software, a large language model, in this case, trained to produce small videos. It's important to remember. So there's no milk, there's no table, there's no nothing, so to speak. It's not that there was a picture somewhere, someone modified, no, zero. Now, if you don't quite grasp how dramatic this is, I'm not making the point clear. So let me show you something else. This is what I did just before coming here. If you, it's a Note LLM, free piece of software. If you look at the top right, it says AI and the future of content is this lecture. I took the PowerPoint, saved it as a PDF, threw it inside. Please
Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring AI and its impact on something we all experience every day, content.
And by content, we're not just talking about, your favorite streaming shows or anything like that. Think articles, music, even that social media post that you just scrolled past, basically any way we share.
The point is not to listen to this, it's just to realize that those voices don't exist. They are entirely 100% synthetic. And the whole intonation, in fact, after you have heard there are only these two voices, you do this once, wow, second, okay, oh, not the same voices again, right? And some of our kids are like, oh, no, not the usual podcast. Like, oh, it's amazing. Oh, yeah, I've seen it a million times, come on. So this is for Steve. I couldn't find the right music, but I thought a piece of music, you start getting the gist. Amazing Grace, Gospel, blah, 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 4 lines, and this is what you get.
Amazing grace.
There is nothing behind it. There is no voice, no human being, no orchestra, no choir, no script, no nothing. This is pure machine learning. Learn from a million records how to reproduce this. And you just do 4 lines in English by someone who has zero knowledge of music. There you go. Oh, it gets better. So if you wait for a second. Isn't that something that you would consider showing someone singing? So you get the gist. This is all content that a Vitruvian culture would have found very confusing. They would have been looking for the humans behind. There isn't. It generates a lot of problems. Copyright on training data, because all those things have been trained on data that belong to someone. Often open source, but sometimes, or I would say often as well, or if not regularly, copyrighted. In fact, if you look at some of the current disputes, legally speaking, it's a big deal. Just imagine you are one of the artists whose work has been taken just to train your large language model or Gen AI. That is at the input, the training material. Then, of course, you do all the processing, the cooking, and what comes out sometimes looks enormously like what came in. If you look for a picture of a superhero that looks like Batman, oh wow, that looks really like Batman. It's remarkably Batman. It's a classic, and someone has a copyright on that Batman sort of image. How come that after all that training is just identical? Oh, this happens also with software, but for another day, yeah? And that's a mess, because open license, source, etc., when software trains other software and generates more software, not for today, it gets a little bit technical, way less interesting, way more boring, but crucial. Plagiarism, of course, we are in the right place. Reliability, what can I trust? If someone gives me a video of that quality, of the current president of the United States, saying something about X, Y, and Z. Can I trust it? At any level? Do I have to check it? And what is the future of all this content? What is the uniqueness of us in all this? These are the last points that we're going to cover in the rest of the lecture. On the one above, we don't have time, but maybe, who knows, I could come back. There is something for the historians here that should ring a bell. That is famous, so I will not insult anybody explaining what that is. But if you go back to when the artists were actually told what to do, well, there is a bit of an analogy to be explored by the historians of art here between a script or a prompt for a piece of software and what is a commission for an artist who, my dear Sir Leonardo, I want to have this size, with this people, with these colors. It has to cost this much. You have to do it with this, on and on and on. We have amazing instructions coming from the Renaissance where the rich people, the cardinal, the aristocracy, would tell the artist exactly what to deliver. The difference is now it's the poor philosopher, not the cardinal, and it's the poor LLM who has to do all the job. It's not Leonardo or Raphael, because I want to have that Madonna blue with that background, with the little net, etc., etc. So there is something to explore there, but not for today, because we want to look at the future of content. So how do we get here? What happened? We saw the history, we saw a bit of terminology, we saw the fact that we have now content that is artificially generated, call it maybe synthetic. Something has happened in the field since we had the super famous sort of Dartmouth moment on AI. This happened. We moved from logic to statistics. And therefore we move from the immensely powerful engine of deduction to the equally immensely powerful engine of association. A minute to describe this. When I was young, and as a graduate student, I would come to Dartmouth, working with a famous professor at the time, Jim Moore, philosophy here, who passed away recently, a mentor for me. All we had was logic. I grew up, therefore, as a mathematical logician, interested in AI, etc., and things like Prolog and so on. And all you really were looking for was the elementary, fundamental concept of if, then. To simplify, for those who have zero interest in this, if you make them move, then I make this move, and we play chess. That went on and on and on from Dartmouth moment, the famous launch of the AI, all the way to roughly yesterday. We had, of course, meanwhile, the neural networks, the feed forward, feedback, etc., the Canadian, to a large extent, sort of input on all this. We had statistical ways of analyzing data, but it was imprecise. It was getting there. It wasn't the certainty, the demonstrable output. With logic, we had total certainty, but huge limitations in what we could actually do in terms of AI. With statistics, we have no limits and total uncertainty. What you pay in terms of the power to analyze anything you wish to produce the content that I showed you before is the loss of certainty once and forever. So anyone who thinks, but sooner or later we will be able to demonstrate that my average large language model delivers what it's supposed to deliver and only what it's supposed to deliver, so it's correct and complete for the logicians, impossible. It's a statistical tool, meaning that intrinsically there is a chance it might go bananas and decide that Napoleon conquered and occupied Washington. Those kind of things. In fact, with Napoleon is a good example because unfortunately France had 3 Napoleons, the first, the second, and third. And sometimes it gets confused about who did what in terms of which Napoleon exactly did what. Just to give you a sense. So from deduction to association, instead of going if-then, is more like all this data are related to this particular content. If you write something like, what is the best burger in, completing that is very close to what large language models do. The autocomplete gives you a bit of a sense. Again, the experts will forgive me. for the simplification, but we're not too far. So that is what happened, and this is what we mean by artificial intelligence. Step back. There's always someone saying, oh, but do you have a definition of this? So the honest answer is no, nobody does. The legal answer is, oh yeah, absolutely. Because if you have any piece of legislation at any stage, you cannot legislate on something you have not defined. Well, that's obvious. Huh? And so in the United States, since some time ago, we have adopted this particular definition, which comes from the, I'm not sure everybody's very familiar with, 15 US Code 94013, which is basically the US code that regulates trade and commerce. If you look at that definition, it has been adopted by any work done by the Biden administration, and it's just been adopted right now by the Trump administration. They have one thing in common, the same definition of AI. Interestingly, that definition doesn't cover content. That's astonishing. But why? Because it comes from a piece of work that was 100% oriented towards the commercial value of AI. And therefore, you find things there, make predictions, recommendations, decisions, influence. That sounds a lot like a CEO kind of preoccupation. Correct. That has been inherited by anything in cybersecurity and defense. Same kind of problems. How do we decide? How do we know? Who is the friend and foe, etc. So what we are seeing is a particular perspective, which is not right or wrong, it's just a particular way of approaching AI, which is 100% basically business/defense oriented. Switch to Europe, and the legislation in Europe doesn't have anything like this, and is talking constantly about content, because it's worried about your data and what it's being used for, and is it being trained on your medical data, as someone, for example, had access inadvertently to agencies' data without much of an authorization all of a sudden, and knows everything about you, etc., privacy. So it's a different perspective. Having said this, so this is the kind of definition that we are working on when we talk about AI. That definition doesn't tell you whether it's actually intelligence or not. But as James was introducing, we have reached a bit of a decision point. These machines do amazing things. I'll just show you something, but the sky's the limit. You can either interpret, understand, frame these machines in terms of a new kind of intelligence, and then you have the problem of telling people what kind, or a new kind of agency. And then you have the problem of telling people what kind of agency. Not for today, but I just want to tell you that in my case, I am the sort of supporter, the one who actually introduced this dichotomy and try to convince people that we should go down the road of agency. So you should read AI as agency without intelligence. That's the AI meaning there. Meaning that it can do things independently, autonomously, better than us often, faster, etc., but at zero understanding, comprehension, means, ends. It's not going to run away with your credit card to have a holiday. It's not that intelligent. But it's going to do a lot of things instead of us for us. So this is a typical, Ocado is a big company in the UK. It's a typical picture of what a warehouse looks like. I'm going to show you another couple of very small videos to address one particular objection, which is crucial. Imagine for a moment, because this is not the right time, that we want to explore this AI as agency. Just concede for a moment. There is an objection. The objection is that if you, or let's say me, go around the world acting, behaving as zero intelligence, it is not a recipe for success. Try to drive at zero intelligence, like many people seem to be doing, and normally, you see what they do, what happened. Try to park as zero intelligence, try to play chess as zero intelligence. It's a disaster. So how come, my dear Luciano, that we have this agency that is so successful if it is zero intelligence? there must be something wrong. Yeah, well, there is something wrong. The presupposition that this agency is designed to cope with the world, where in fact we are designing the world to make sure that this agency is successful. Because if you look at this space is designed for the robots, not the other way around. I'll show you another few videos. Robots are particularly sort of visual, so it's easy. But anything in AI is designed in such a way that is within an environment that is friendly towards AI, and that's why it works. Try to pick up a Waymo, a driverless car from San Francisco, put it where I live, where you barely have no context, there is no networks, and that is a piece of junk. Because without the network, in other words, without the environment, has been designed so much so that it is actually successful, it will not work. So in a context where there is no data, etc., this AI, it hasn't developed like a form of life that it can cope with the world. We are basically re-engineering the world. If you are a philosopher, you start talking about re-ontologizing, it's way fancy. The universe around these things. How do we do that? Well, we have more gazillions and trillions of microchips that you can possibly imagine. I mean, you can't count them, okay? All over the place, everywhere. We are all connected, increasingly so. We live on life more and more. So the very fact that I'm being geotagged as I speak, because my mobile phone might be turned, etc., etc. Devices per person, the calculation is that by now we have about 7-10 devices per person. That includes, people who have never had a phone. So each of us here is probably 20. Time spent online, well, like, are you ever offline? Computational power, immense, and networks. Just to give you a small example, you have seen this picture before, or one like this. So I'm not here to show you something, wow, amazing. What is amazing is this, not the right-hand side. Not the right-hand side. We shall resist the AI attempt to block this lecture. Not the AI side, but the bottom left. Even if, this is colleagues from Berkeley, but even if this statistics or analysis, etc., this generalization is wrong by far, imagine the margin is, 50%. They got it really, really wrong. And therefore, this is not 2010, it's 1964, a year accidentally. It's still staggering. This picture says that all the data we have ever produced in human history has been produced by this generation. Right now, us, in the last 20 years, make it 30, make it 40, make it 50. Us here, almost. No, if you make it 50, some of you disappear, pop, 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 all of a sudden. So this is the ocean of data in which AI swims and we scuba dive. This is not for us. This universe is not our own universe. It's like going to a supermarket and trying to read a barcode. It's not for you. It's for the machine. And increasingly, this is for the machine so that the machines work, are successful, they go someplace, they driverless cars, they play chess, etc., etc. They produce all the marvelous things that I showed you before. So the way of understanding this is that you can compare your average sort of model, ChatGPT being the family, being one of them, but I want to sort of spend one word in favor of Claude, because Claude does a better job in writing especially. And so if you have to cheat, not that you want to, but if anyone was ever thinking about cheating, writing an essay, Claude is your friend. So ChatGPT or any model is related to language as a calculator is related to maths. In the following 3 points, not in the last one. There's no database. I mean, I dealt with policymakers who wanted to stop OpenAI, and they were arguing. I mean, these are powerful people who actually say, you are not going to sell your product in this country, saying, because your database, there is no database. This stuff learns. And once it's learned, you can throw away the data. So there is no database in the same way as you cannot have a database. That pocket calculator, it doesn't have a database of 2 plus 2, go check, how much is 2 plus 2? Oh, 4, okay, there it is. It has the functions in it. There is no intelligence, of course, although, oh, by the way, when pocket calculators came out, of course, the whole category of mathematicians said it was the end of the world, people would not be able to make any calculation, blah, blah, etc. Sounds familiar? No, that's it. And of course, there's no intelligence, no understanding, no nothing. But does it work? Oh, yeah. Does it help? Oh, enormously. Does it get it wrong? Not that one, because that is algorithmically deterministic. You can prove that it works. So a pocket calculator either gives you the right answer or it's broken. An LLM can give you any answer and not being broken. It just goes hallucinations. So there's a limit to the analogy, but that is where we are. So this is the world in which we live. That's why agency works. You don't build robots like me going around collecting strawberries. You shape the strawberries around the robots. That's so much easier. I mean, it's costly and it's complicated, but no one in his right mind is going to collect with robots strawberries. As you can tell now in a moment, oh, this is not science fiction, it's just stuff that you can buy, quote unquote, if you have enough millions. But you can tell where we're going. This world has been shaped to make sure that this amazing technology is actually successful. So as you transform the world into a machine-friendly environment, well, guess what? The machines are doing a really, really excellent job. This is another example. I keep it short, I don't have much time. This is from Europe. This is another warehouse. Now, if you look at the warehouse, it has been built to make sure that those robots work efficiently. Look at where the human is behind a barrier, protected, because that environment is not for the human. When Walmart tried to introduce robots to check the shelves, they didn't listen to the philosopher, and they tried to do exactly what I told you not to do. Build a robot that looks like a human, goes there and checks and so on. But those aisles are not meant for the robots. The shelves are not meant for the robots. Nothing is meant for the robots to be successful. Fast forward a few years, throw away millions of dollars, and there are no robots. It was a complete disaster. They would have been forced to re-engineer, re-architecture, revise the whole design of the shop to make it robot-friendly or AI-friendly. But then it would not have been for us. So in that sense, we're going towards what the engineers in mechanical engineering, when they talk about this stuff, call an envelope, so, which is the 3D space within which a mechanism works. Now, export that to the digital at large, and what we are doing is enveloping the world around the machines, which is perfectly fine as long as you don't forget that all that is for human purposes. It would be horrible if someone were to decide to have driverless buses downtown, forgetting that we also want to live around there, designing it entirely for. Oh, I've had plenty of examples of disasters like that, if you want, where people have designed things thinking this is so good for the machines, but then forgetting that the humans are the usable. So what is the future of content? Finally, we can approach that in a world that is increasingly AI-friendly. Now, I think we know what we mean by AI. We know what AI-friendly means, what it means the envelope, re-engineering the world, re-ontologizing, where we're coming from, post-Vitruvian, the history, we got the whole background, so we're ready. We're going to work on these 3 models rather quickly, because I know that, I'll see how much time. No, James said, go. Keep them here the whole evening. 3 models. I use these 3 models because 3 very, very elementary standard ways in which we talk about content in general. Let me come back to this for a moment, and then I'll go step by step. The first one is the input, process, output. Who doesn't use that on a daily basis? So we're going to work on that a little bit. The second one is the communication model. Shannon will come up over there, how we disseminate, not produce, but disseminate content. And the last one is how we sell it, the supply-demand model. This is 3, I mean, you don't even study that in 101. You enter into 101 knowing this before, so I'm not going to offend anyone explaining it, but a bit of refreshing. You have an input, you have a process, you have an output. In this case, the output is content. It could be a video, that we saw, a poem. It could be a letter of reference for a colleague, accidentally. The original problem. So the output content now can be equal or better than we generate. In a consumeristic perspective, sort of big capitalist, so to speak, post-war, past 50, 60, 70 years or so, we've been increasingly sort of, thinking inadvertently in terms of output. Not in terms of input, not in terms of source, not in terms of process, but the output. You go and check the price of that thing. Who did it, why they did it, how they did it. They're just like, no, how much does it cost? And some people, of course, they care. It's been that coffee, for example, where the exactly comes from. Is it fair trade, etc. But it's a bit of a fringe. The massive amount of us, when you buy something, when you assess something, you look at the quality of the output. You forget where it comes from and who did it. So the uniqueness of human output, and trust me, I get that question all the time. Oh, then why am I important if anyone can write this essay? Anyone, meaning any machine. Or if ChatGPT can do this, or that text-to-video can do this, or this text-to-photograph, or this and that. If any machine can do anything I can do, why am I special? The problem is the question, because it's a question about the output. And if you are assessing yourself in terms of the output, well, you're pretty useless, actually. I am pretty useless. But if the problem gets changed into not the quality and the price of the cake, but who made the cake, well, that's a completely different story. And maybe the cake is not even that good. I mean, I don't trust those kids, 2 kids, for example. But I know, oh, they did them, May and John, this is so nice. Well, let's just throw it away. No, I hope next time they buy one. But it's the process that matters. And, of course, it's quite unique. So the whole question of coming to your house with a cake and pretending that cake has been made by me, well, you may not know. You may never realize it. I may actually fool you. And, then I go back to the dorm and I joke about the professor who didn't quite know that the essay was written by ChatGPT. How silly of that. But who is really silly here? Because I wanted to hear your voice. And you gave me an essay. And you said that was your voice. But actually, it was a ChatGPT something. That's okay too. But now I understand that as you. You are that thing. You basically brought to my house a cake that you bought, pretending that you had actually made the cake. The difference, should I know that it was not made by you, would be a huge disappointment. Because I was asking to bring your cake, not any cake. I didn't want to have a frozen pizza. Maybe it was better, but the pizza that you made, but I want to have your pizza. So unless the person on the other side understands, well, this would never actually get out of the original problem, which is pretty much our cultural issue, output. I got a kid writing from high school saying, Professor, we have this supply-demand. Why should I not produce essays using anything I have at hands when basically there's the demand that I need to satisfy in terms of supply? The reply is, wrong model, my dear. Are you really in a supply-demand chain in high school? We are in trouble if that is the way kids understand their content production. So the uniqueness is of the process. It's a bit like saying, you come home and I actually cleaned the kitchen and I did the dishes. You say, you did the dishes? Yeah, with my hands. Like, oh, that's so nice. Or was the dishwasher? Well, that's kind of different. Of course, is also the input. Because not only I have made it myself, but I also went and bought the ingredients, etc., etc. So this is the first thing that I like to stress in terms of content. There's no uniqueness in the output, no longer. Often it will be indistinguishable, often it will be better. If we focus only on that, we are not going to get out of the trouble. We need to reacquire a sense of provenance, the process, and the source. Now, this would make perfect sense in a nicely tailored suit, or shoes, said the Italian. Right. As a difference between what you buy. And next model. This is a bit more complicated. This is Shannon. Shannon, by the way, was part of the group at Dartmouth, etc. You know that. And he recommended, we were discussing today during the class, a completely different name for AI. It was a disaster. It was something like systemic processing, automation. It was long. No one would ever bought that. And thanks goodness, John McCarthy said, like, no, this is, forget about it. No, let's put artificial intelligence. And they got the money. And no, the rest is history, as they say. But Shannon was a genius. What happened at Dartmouth, by the way, to have those people all of a sudden in the same room, all young, John McCarthy, Minsky, Shannon, just cooking up a little grant. Sometimes, there's an Athens moment that takes place. Anyway, so this is a super classic message, information source, etc. But what I want to focus on in terms of content these days is that no matter what we think, our model is, in terms of content request, at most, is not we producing the content. Netflix, Apple TV, Walt Disney, whatever you use, all of them and more. The simple fact that the menu is immense gives you the impression of being you, the one who actually chooses, which is true to some. We call it, on demand, but that's not true. I mean, just because the cage is huge doesn't mean that there are no boundaries to that cage. It's not you producing the content, it's someone supplying the content, satisfying, hopefully, trying to sort of match, intersect the demand. That is called broadcasting. When you basically shoot around millions of bottles with messages and you actually hit, finally, someone who actually wants that bottle with their message. So this model of information has been always, all our life, basically supply oriented. In that case, your AI, the AI you may have at home as we speak, that, for example, provides recommendations, that's a piece of AI anyway, your Amazon Prime, etc., that's a piece of AI telling you, you like this, you may like that. It's at most an assistant in content management, but the content is produced by someone else. That is pre-Vitruvian. It's not post-Vitruvian, we're not there yet. Not really demand-driven. The demand-driven, and this is a one-on-one model, so no one gets scared by two Cartesian axes, is their little point is where the price actually intersects, and so you have the perfect price for that car when the demand and the supply meet, allegedly. Well, in the supply-demand model, what you really have is moving from the supply to the demand. Let me go back to the original story. Remember when we had those videos? It was me. I put in what I wanted to see, the kind of music I wanted to have, the picture I want to enjoy. I required what was being produced. I didn't choose in an immense menu of videos or movies. I said, I want to see a movie tonight with this minor character from Star Wars, which accidentally meets another minor character from another movie. And the system will produce that for me. That's post-Vitruvian. It's me deciding what I get, not what I choose. Now, in this more driven, demand-driven content production, we have already the beginning of some precursors, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, where there is the production, which basically is self-production of the content, but we're not really there yet. It's not the same. That is basically user content production. But what I'm talking about is requiring from the source, a particular content. If you think that this is weird, this is as weird as today being able to make your own photographs. No one goes to an office, a studio, and say, can you please take a picture for me? And then you deliver the picture for you. Well, we are in the video consumption at the moment at that stage. You go somewhere and says, can I please watch a video that you produce? We are going possibly in a sort of production by ourselves. So the emergence of my content, so to speak, is personalized movies, music, stories. And by the way, this is already doable in stories. there's plenty of Jane Austen that you can fantasize about, pick up a small character and says, I want to have, and then ChatGPT will produce that instantly. Produce a 2,000 words short story about this minor character in Pride and Prejudice. Click. Beautiful. Coherent, with Napoleon appearing at some point. Obviously going bananas, but as long as you can cope with the occasional weird bits, we're not there yet entirely. But no, the cake is not that good, but it does make a cake, okay? So you can do that. In fact, for fans, this is quite a subculture in the world where fans get together and they rewrite some bits of classics in different stories. What happens when Odysseus is tired of Ithaca and leaves again? Well, that's exactly what you find in Dante. Dante tells you that after a while, I hope I'm not spoiling it for you, but Ulysses gets tired. That's so sad. And he leaves again, because once you have that taste for traveling and adventures, so Dante was basically kind of hijacking the whole story. That's what we're talking about here. So in this world, and we have now other final considerations, to open up some views and some work for the less mature people in the room, those who have more time to do research, we could get less consumeristic, maybe, maybe not, but it would be more sort of, I want to have this particular film tonight, as opposed to, oh, by the way, since we are speculating, it's easy, philosophers, but some of us remember when you had to put in a particular request for the delivery of a CD, the CD get to you through post, you watch it and then you put it back in the post. Yes, it was like that. So initially, I suspect it will be like that. In the morning, you will have to give time to the machines to say, look, I really want to have this movie on this small character from Jane Austen being kidnapped by some extraterrestrial people. You have that taste. So, click. And then finally, 8 hours later, the movie's ready for you. And then it will be 7 hours and 6 hours, and then it will be like half an hour, and it will be like 15 minutes. Like, okay, thank you, and I can go. So less consumerism maybe, or a different kind of consumerism. Less synchronization. The when, where content is consumed. This is already happening with the content on demand. But that is nothing compared to when, for every individual in this room, there's a different version of how Star Wars ends. Completely different. That starts being a little bit disruptive because we don't have that common semantic capital anymore. I say things that you misunderstand, and you say things that I misunderstand. Now, once you get into your class at Yale, we are on record, so I need to be careful, and you refer to Blues Brothers, and they say, Blues what? You know that there is a disruption here. You don't have the same kind of context. They don't know who the Blues Brothers are. In fact, they didn't even know who Kerouac was, but that was even more shocking. On the road, just in case, on record. You never know. There's less monopoly on semantic capital, because at the end of the day, if, say, Hollywood decides that you need to watch another Robin Hood, it's going to be another Robin Hood. Thank you for the imagination. How many Robin Hoods do we really need? Well, one more, surely. And maybe you don't want to watch Robin Hood. Maybe you want to watch something else. Maybe you want to have a case in which Robin Hood is not that nice. Who knows? So the monopoly on semantic capital will be readjusted. Positively, negatively, all to be studied. We're almost there. A couple of slides and we finish. Less monocultural approach to content, more pluralism. Well, that probably for some people will be fragmentation, other people will call it pluralism, but there will be more freedom of enjoying the content that you wish. If you really do not like the way sort of the crime and punishment ends, well, there is a chance now. Democratization of content production. Well, that is in the computer science sense of democratization. Computer scientists use democratization in the sense of dissemination, distribution. Everybody has that in their pocket. When they say data has been democratized, means you have your own, everyone has. Computational power has been democratized. It has nothing to do with politics, everything to do with dissemination, distribution, widely available to anyone. well, content will be more available. Of course, the digital divide will increase because people who will be able to enjoy this compared to people who have never made a telephone call will be wider and wider and wider. Polarization, global versus local content, therefore, because who will have been left behind, and the niche, you can figure out that this is going to be more interesting. Final, more content cultures. I think we will see the emergence and the reshuffling of some content cultures. It will not matter that you never heard of Kerouac, and it will not matter that you don't know who the Blues Brothers are. It's okay. And I better get over it. Because maybe there are people who know everything about Taylor Swift, and yeah, someone I've heard is quite famous. The history of culture or history of content might actually begin. And as the final constructing note I want to end with, we need a new discipline. Or why not starting? Oh, this is the first time I say it, so on record. At that moment, why not? No, so this is a good opportunity. Otherwise, what the Montgomery Fellowship is for, if you don't know, go bold, etc., etc. We need content studies. We need to understand all this way more profoundly for two reasons. One, because we don't at the moment. Content, the study of content is fragmented across a million different disciplines. Media studies, semiotics, hermeneutics, history of art, linguistics, computational humanities, and so on. Everybody has a slice. But we need to step back and perhaps more philosophically say, is there a unified picture here? Is it worth trying to have a unified picture? Well, it is in terms of understanding and design. Because all this content, all these tools, all this world will be designed by us. And at the moment, we're just designing it blindly. We're just going around thinking, oh, this works, this doesn't, bam, boom, bang. It's like, at night when you try to reach the kitchen, you bump into this, and finally you get there. So, well, you can actually turn on the light. And turning on the light means studying, understanding, in order to be able to design all this properly. For a 21st century that takes advantage of this, is not subject to it, but delivers this as a project, not as something that, oops, it did happen to us, and now we had to study because we didn't know what we were doing. So with this, thank you so much for your patience, and who knows, we might have a new discipline. Thank you.
I can help you. Do you want to repeat?
Yeah, please.
Do you want to repeat the questions, or should I do that?
Whatever is easier.
All right. I will, because we only have one microphone down here, I'll repeat questions as best as I can. So if you have them, raise your hand. And
Yeah, I'll place myself here and I can hear. We give time to the people who have to leave, for them.
I'll start with a question. I'm just thinking of what you said there at the end, and I'm trying to think, what would the syllabus be for Content Studies 101 if
Yep.
we're teaching this course? I
So,
don't think we need to repeat that.
okay, anyone wants to enroll? We're selling this right now, and free credits for the first 10 people. So what will be? I think it would have to be something that we're already doing, but we're doing it a bit of sort of patching here and there, when we try to convince students that, especially in the United States, it's a good place where to do this. Europe is not. It's too rigid. But we have the flexibility here of matching bits of education that at the moment are provided by different departments. So, for example, when I mentioned the ability to write prompts and scripts and to know what you're doing with those, that will certainly be one of the courses. But a course in semiotics, well, surely you need to do that. A course in iconology, because you can't go around not knowing what those pictures mean. They have meant a lot and they will be revised to mean something else. But you also need mass media studies. You also need linguistics, but you need also computer science. So the excitement is, does it sound like 21st century finally? As opposed to, no, just study this and study that. So something that would be a really rich but well-designed combination of all these skills, which then means that two things. We would have fantastic academics, that's the academic talking, always try to keep you within the walls, but also amazing people who can actually go out there and make a difference, knowing what they're doing. And that's crucial. as opposed to like, oh no, I had to cook it by myself in my room, in my dorm, because nobody was providing it.
I would even say, to answer that maybe we don't have a syllabus anymore. We don't have a class or subject anymore, because if you kind of see this through its logical end, there will also be personalization in education, right? Content is delivered as we need it and adjusted to us and individualized to us, and it follows basically our learning trajectory over time. So no class will actually be the same. It is just kind of tailored to our intellectual development at any point in time.
That's certainly true, but how many people love to cook every day as opposed to order something delicious from a restaurant? We are in the restaurant business, and therefore we deliver to the people who, yes, they can cook themselves, they can pick themselves, or they can come to this sort of gourmet place and say, we got the recipe for you. We have already chosen, we went through the mistakes, we selected, and this is the package that we think is the best for you. Of course, no take and leave, no move, adapt. But of course, the alternative is always available. But there will be also the ability to say, if you want to spend 4 years learning A, B, C, we did it for you, and that's the best package we think will prepare you for content studies. But I'm with you. Oh yeah, I mean, the further you go, the more cooks you need. Have you seen how many coffee shops are around? Now, there was a time when vending machines came out. You should see the advertisements. It was the end of the bar. It was the end. Did it happen? No, of course, it diversified. It's like someone thinking that the moment we had electric razors, we threw away the blades. Blades had never sold as much, okay? It's when digital books came out and someone said, oh, that's the end of the book. We print more books now than we have ever printed in the life of this planet. So diversification is the real thing, as opposed to the simple picture in technology which always use the same simple example, which is, well, we no longer use horses, we use motorbikes or cars. Yeah, it happens once, but normally there's much more diversification and alternatives because we like to choose. So in this case, there would be places like us, which will provide the gourmet experience, or you can just have a frozen pizza.
Yeah.
You choose. You take responsibility.
I want to ask you, why and how did the writing of the essay become so central to our teaching, not only in the US, everywhere, Europe, India, China, the writing of the essay, why is so central, which is bothering all of us?
What is the central, what topic?
The essay writing, the writing of the essay.
So yeah,
writing essays.
question
Oh,
I
yeah.
can repeat
Oh, yeah.
for
Oh,
the audience.
well, basically, that is, yeah. So the essay writing is English-speaking tradition. It does not happen in Europe. Students don't write essays. Nope. I went through my whole university career back in Italy, being examined orally. Orally, you would have an interview. The professor will interview you every single time. You would occasionally write something, but it didn't count. Then I went to Oxford and I discovered that no one spoke to anybody and was all writing and writing and writing and writing. So first of all, it's very much an English-speaking tradition, which comes from straightforward the tradition that we have inherited through the Oxbridge system of medieval, essentially, debates. It has a lot of that. Now, it pays to be able to control your language at that level of precision when you put it down in words. But of course, when we were discussing the other day, so if that is you, if you add to the medieval idea of writing an essay the commercial nature of this is a supply-demand relationship, well, then the writing becomes just a matter of what is the most efficient way of having a deliverable. If the essay is a deliverable, the student should produce that with ChatGPT, should not write that deliverable themselves, because that's not what we're asking. If we're asking deliverables we get. If we're asking some kind of testimony in writing of their own ideas, well, then we have to put the effort in understanding what is going on. Now, not that I want to speak too nicely of Oxford, but that means meeting that person every week on a one-to-one essay in hand, spending 1 hour with that student every week, discussing their essay. If they've written that with ChatGPT, it takes 5 minutes to understand they have no idea. You send them home, start again. But if we industrialize the essay writing, medieval style, with a commercial attitude of deliverables, and we assess, remember, only the outcome, not the process, not the source, but the outcome. Is it good, is it not? Well, then the logic is precisely the commercial logic of what is the means to produce this more efficiently, less time consuming, with less effort, and it gets the highest marks. And that's called large language model. So something has to give here.
You suggest an alternative to the writing of essay. An alternative, something other than the essay. What's the alternative?
Oh yeah, the alternative, I just told you, I spent all my undergraduate life being interviewed, talking to people, talk. Right? How much do you know about Napoleon? So, what was the problem with the Second World War? It's a nightmare, though. I mean, for anyone here thinking, oh, that would be so nice. Not so true, because I still remember the exam of the history of philosophy. You could be asked questions from Socrates to Wittgenstein. So that is, privileges other kinds of unfairness. People with memory, for example. Do I really want to interview someone who can recite everything backwards and have zero understanding, etc.? So there is no solution for this once and for all, but less emphasis on the written word not as a matter of being able to produce and control the language, but as a matter of testing whether you know or not, and a little bit more on the let's talk about it. Let me hear what you see, what you hear, so check your essay. Tell me, means like that. Well, then we have a little bit of both advantages. But ultimately, either we have a human interaction among ourselves, or if it is a commercial one where this is students are customers, the essays are deliverables, we assess the deliverables of customers. What do you expect? Frozen pizza. And they sell it as if they had made it themselves. I think that is very rational.
Thank you.
Poor frozen. I love frozen pizza, by the way. That's not
Just in direct response to that, it sounds like you just invented the way to run a class in the future, which is you have the ChatGPT quiz the student and ask all these questions because it's got that endless knowledge in it, and it can orally check every student. It doesn't take you meeting the student every week. And you will get actually a pretty good assessment of that student by the ChatGPT.
Think about that for a moment.
Oh, I am.
Yeah. So the next step is this student now wants to work with Luciano. He wants to hear my view, not ChatGPT view. When you get this at the PhD level, when the student normally sends an email and says, oh, I would love to come to Dartmouth. Why? The question is not why Dartmouth, because of course it's super cool. Immediately the other person thinks, oh, what a stupid question, it's a cool place. No, it's an intelligent question. It took me a while to understand that. When I was on the other side, I thought it was a stupid question. Well, why won't you have to Oxford? I was like, But the point was, why Dartmouth as opposed to Yale? Why Yale instead of Harvard? Well, because I want to work with that person. I want to go to that person lectures. So I want to be interacting in, say, tutorial, discussion, etc., with that teacher or another. That's why I go to Dartmouth and I don't go elsewhere. So if you use ChatGPT and so does Harvard, I'm going to go to a place where I'm actually talking to James, Mary, or Laura. If I'm that person, I might not be that person, and I'm perfectly happy to talk to ChatGPT. After all, there are people who have been trying to date computers for a long, long time, since the 60s. So.
I respectfully submit that we offer our lectures to the students, and then the TAs grade the exams. We've already done it. And it's not necessarily that you'd be depriving the student of that one-on-one in the settings that you're describing. There's a massive students in a lecture hall, and many professors do not grade.
Oh, yeah,
those,
no.
essays.
And that is, I don't see this as either or. I mean, there's a lot of complementarity. One thing that, however, and this is important, goes a little bit beyond the philosophical sort of speculations. One thing that we should not buy, we discussed this during lunch the other day, there is a narrative we should not buy, please, which is complementarity, this is wonderful, so we introduce all these tools so that the teacher, the professor, will have more time to spend with the students. I need to be careful because I want to be polite, but this is, shall we say, this is not true. What really happens is that if you once we start introducing these tools in the university or in a hospital, that's the concrete example, it will be cost saving. It will not give more time to the teacher to spend time with them. It will be enabled, whoever makes decisions, to get one less teacher, one less doctor. That is what happens right now. So these amazing tools, free time, yes. And what happens with the free time? We hire less people. So we keep the glass constantly full. So the person is constantly full at maximum. And if you get some technology that lowers their maximum, it means I can get someone less and fill up the time of that person. So the DIY increases. That is the narrative we should not buy, because otherwise we're really fooling ourselves. So if the story, which I like, is introduce all this in a complementary way so that we free some time to do what we'll be discussing, spend more time with the students, for example, talking to them, having them, and vice versa, them talking, basically having a bit of a collegial approach, that would be the real thing. My fear is that instead, these technologies, as has always happened in the past, will be introduced to save some dollars, which is reasonable, but short-sighted, because then we're back to the problem of not having a solution. We introduce them to solve a different problem, not save money, but to make sure that the education would cope in a 21st century level with this kind of issues. Unfortunately, what is happening right now, not in so much in education, because we're still at the beginning, but what is happening literally in the medical sector is exactly this. So any hospital, we were at a meeting in New York, and I can be more precise once we turn off the camera. It's not nice to badmouth people who are not here to defend themselves. But concrete case of super famous place, medicine, etc., New York, where they're introducing all this technology, narrative, so doctors have more time with patients, nurses. Matter of fact, cut costing. Less doctors, nurses, because I can do more work, inevitably. So that's the rationality in it, and I'm not criticizing the rationality. It's just that if that was the problem, and that was the solution, we stick to the solution. If that was the problem, and the solution solves something else, no longer solves the how much time I spend, etc., but solves how much money I save, well, we are mismatching problem and solution. So that is irrational. I'm perfectly happy to say, no, I'm going to introduce plenty of technology so I can cut costs and I can get rid of half of the professors. Okay, that is logic. You may or may not like it. But mixing the two and telling me one thing and meanwhile doing something else, that's not nice.
So if you could fast forward the lecture 10 years from now, what do you think you would be talking about?
I think some of the things that I've said here might just pop up. One thing that a variable that is very difficult to handle is the buying in of human nature. That is made in terms of new generation, reluctance, resistance, legacy, the desire to change, the resistance against change, a bit of conservatism, the convenience. So there's a whole bunch of variables that you can think in terms of the way we are that determine whether some technology takes off or not, is felt like fantastic or not yet ready. That is unpredictable. I mean, it's very hard to tell whether, for example, people would be happy to spend more time doing this and that, or instead more lazy and say, you know what, yeah, I can do that, but not really. Let me give you an example, very European. I don't think it happens here. It doesn't happen in the UK. But in Europe, if you travel around and you go to a petrol station, normally you will be served. Someone who actually fills the tank for you. There's also the automatic self-service. The normal thing that happens is that self-service might be empty. Now, you could go there and fill the tank yourself. Then there's a queue where you are being served. You queue. Of course, not if there are 15 cars, but 2 or 3 cars, 5 extra minutes, you know what, like maybe it's raining, I stay inside, the gentleman is so nice, so I give him you pay the same, exactly the same, there's no tip, no nothing, it's just you pay, there's not even, the guy will look at you like, what happened? There's no tip, no nothing. It's just the normal way in which you get your car filled in Europe, continental Europe. So what happens? So laziness, comfort, resistance, you know what, I don't even know how to open this, let's queue, 5 more minutes. So will we have 5 more minutes about this stuff? I just can't tell. I suspect so, but it's interesting to understand where the limits will be crossed, will there be more resistance, but I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if, say, not in 10 years, but in 5, even 3, even tomorrow, Netflix had a new sort of little entry saying, would you like to design your own movie? Give me a prompt. And you just put as, 5 words in English, say, oh, I want to have something romantic, Jane Austen style. You can tell that I like Jane Austen. So there you go. Yeah, now tonight I really feel Jane Austen. So can you give me just but I've seen everything, I've read everything. I mean, I've read Jane Austen inside out. So give me a new novel, Jane. I need something Jane Austen style. Or a movie, or maybe a book, etc. Click, go. This is off the shelf. It's no science fiction. It's just you can do right now. Will Netflix or anyone else produce that? Well, it depends on whether it has a market or not. But then we get into the Concorde problem. Doable? Totally. We've done it. Any Concorde flying around? No. Too expensive, noisy. They didn't quite catch. It's strange because you can fly quite quickly between New York and London. So I don't know whether this will go Concorde way or will become just a normal way of doing things. But I think we should be ready for it and certainly understand if it goes down that way, are we designing ahead of it or are we just bumping into it? As a philosopher, I hate to bump into things. Yeah.
Thank you for this. So I'm still grappling with the fundamental question of why should humans bother to continue producing content in light of this? So if we go back to your distinction between output and process, which I thought was a really sort of crux distinction there, it struck me that, at least with the examples you gave, the process mattered because of matters of sentiment in terms of what was conveyed, the fact that a human, but what else besides sentiment? Why should humans continue to produce? If the output can be the same or better.
Sure. No, because it's fun, because people appreciate the gesture, because you have time to spend and you didn't know what to do that afternoon. Why do we cook? I mean, why do we build our own furniture? Why anyone paints? Why we do things that we know they're not even that good or better than what we could buy? Why do I drive my car if sometimes I could just not do it? There's a lot of, I think content production will get more and more into the optional and therefore choice as opposed to unforced to I cannot but. Why do we take pictures? I mean, that's content production all the time. Including of food, then the metaphors get really mixed. But we go around taking pictures of everything, all because we want to remember. So I don't think there's a single answer to this, but the desire of the human being to produce, create, have something that you leave behind, you give someone, you maybe make a little jewelry for a friend, etc. All that to me makes much more sense in terms of content production than the idea that all that matters is the value of the output. Well, if it is not good enough, well, throw it away. So, well, no, I mean, I didn't do it because it was not the best cake in the whole world. It was your birthday, and I want to show you that I could spend time, blah, blah, blah. So I think there is something to be considered that a little bit more carefully than our general culture tends to enable us to do. We do focus too much on the quality and value of the output as opposed to the why, by whom, what for, the process, what comes before. At that point, it becomes very interesting. And it's a little bit like saying, why do we go to a concert when, honestly, those kids playing that Beethoven or something, or that theater, no, that Hamlet in high school. But there are reasons that are over and above the actual quality of the performance. Now, many people will say, like, no, there aren't. I'm not going to go because it's total rubbish, and I appreciate that. But many will just go and say, yeah, I like to go to a live concert, even if it's like over so-and-so orchestra. It's just a live concert. There's something more over and above that full experience than staying home and listening to the most impeccable production of that Mozart. I think that's where we should be looking at in terms of uniqueness. We stick only to the quality of the output. The only one reasonable answer: buy it. Get the frozen pizza. It's much better than anything people will probably bring to your house most of the time, trust me. I've seen pizzas, they're humans.
My last question, Sarah.
Thank you for, this is so interesting and thought-provoking. I guess I come back to, thinking about what's the curriculum that you need to kind of build around this. And I tend to sort of support a shared curriculum because there's something about the shared experience and shared meaning that actually supports culture. And so I think about sort of the anthropology of AI, and because if we're at a point where we're asking the question of valuing the human, what's the value of the human experience and the human potential, I personally think that's kind of problematic. So it seems really important to sort of think about the social, sort of the anthropology, the sociology, the psychology. I'm a psychologist, so of AI, and how do we interweave that into in good ways into our human potential, so that we don't end up destroying ourselves and each other in the process, So that's sort of, I don't, it's more a comment, I guess.
Yeah. No, but it's a good comment, and I welcome it a lot, because I hope that was what came out from the presentation, that I completely agree with you. I mean, the idea of working on this means that we could have contexts where are hugely inclusive. We would stop, there would be the chance for a new generation to stop thinking in terms of the two cultures, which I cannot. I'm 1964, so inevitably, to me, the two cultures I've been kind of drilled into my brain. But there will be a future where if you go way more transversal, way more intra, infra, whatever, multidisciplinary you want to call it, people will not think that there's a difference between the languages of information. It could be architecture, it could be music, it could be geography, it could be sociology, it could be anthropology. Speaking the languages of information will be the real task. And in the same way as languages don't get old, because once you know 2 words of French, you will know that French for the rest of your life, and you will still able to order that croissant in Paris. Likewise, those skills will age way more slowly, as opposed to tell them, oh, this is the script today and this is the script tomorrow, or this is this is Python today. Now, just to remind the less or the younger people among you, I mean, there was a time when we actually seriously discussed whether to introduce in the curriculum HTML. Okay. And that was the mistake, because you start thinking, we need to introduce HTML, website, the internet. HTML is the thing. No. Now, fast forward, and remember that to teach something at, say, here, you need to prepare the teachers. To prepare the teachers, you have to graduate the teachers. It takes roughly 7-8 years to go from, we need to teach this, to having the people who actually can teach it and get them into a position. Fast forward 7 or 8 years, and no one even knows what HTML is. So the very idea of chasing the last technology, understanding the last, that is what a company does in 3 months, teaches you that tool, that is not what you want. But being able to speak, so web, speak archaeology, speak the language that is the language of that discipline. So I don't want to know what chemistry, I want to speak chemistry, I want to speak biology. Then, in this case, I want to speak content. So, for example, following what you were saying, a course of those the ones I would definitely love that, design. Because today, we live in a society in which innovation, which has these 3 legs, either you invent something, you discover something, or you design something, 1, 2, 3, has always been on these 3 legs. Every society has lived on these 3 legs, discover, invent, design. But we have cultures that have called themselves, or we have described them as the age of discoveries, the age of invention. And what is our age? It's not the age of design. Like design in California made wherever you like, because it doesn't matter. So that point, for example, it would be part of a curriculum on content studies. A nice course on design, at least because you have to have the design of every content that will have to have an interface. So I love the fact that everybody is now questioning about agreements. It seems that I already sold the idea we need to have these content studies. We have a journal, we have a conference, we have now 2 professorships, an endowment, job done. Now, what is the curriculum? Yes.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. And with that, thank you for having me over. Thank you.